Hello and welcome back to Advent of Code. We are solving problem day 2 red nosed reports. So what in this day we have given some reports, and each report is a list of numbers called levels. And what we want to do is we want to find if any of the reports are unsafe. That is, there are primarily two conditions. That is, each of the levels should be either all increasing or all decreasing, and the number, that is a constraint, that each of that increment or decrement should be within 1 or at most 3. So it cannot remain the same, or it cannot decrease if it was previously increasing, or increase if it was previously decreasing. So that is what the general overview of the problem is. So we just need to iterate over all the reports. That is, each line is a single report, and within each report there are levels that are marked as levels. So we need to check out which of the reports are unsafe and basically count which are safe. So to do that, we'll explore what exactly the problem is saying. So we'll take the input, that is the six reports that we have given, that the problem has been given for examples. So we have 7, 6, 4, 2, and 1 as a first example, and you can see the difference. So we'll compute the first difference. We'll compute the difference of the first two elements, that is 7, 6 minus 7, which comes out to be minus 1, and then we calculate the difference of the next element, which is 4 minus 6, that comes out to be again negative 2, and then we take out the next two elements, that is 2 minus 4, which comes out to be minus 2 again, and then 1 minus 2, which becomes minus 1. So you can see all of the differences that we've computed are decreasing. That is, they are in negatives, and they are within 1 and 3. If you see the absolute difference, that is within 1 and 3. If you look at, so this report is safe. And then, so we move into the next report, which will be 1, 2, 7, 8, and 9. And we compute the first two difference, that is 2 minus 1, that becomes 1. But 7 minus 2 becomes 5, which is out of bounds, that the difference should be within 1 and 3, and here in this case it is 5. So we need to mark this report as unsafe. But so the report, the difference is increasing, but it is increasing too much. It is increasing by 5. We just want reports to be increasing within 1 or 3. Now we take a look at the third report. So 7 minus 9, the difference is minus 2. So we know that this is a decreasing report. So 6 minus 7 becomes minus 1. Then 2 minus 6 becomes minus 4. Now minus 4 is not allowed because it is going beyond the bounds, and we cannot. So this fails the constraint, and we mark this report as unsafe as well. Now we move to the fourth report, and we compute the differences between adjacent elements. That is 3 minus 1. 3 minus 1 becomes 2, and 2 minus 3 becomes negative 1. Now this is also an issue because initially the report was increasing. There was a difference of positive 2, but now 2 minus 3 becomes negative 1, and you can see the levels are first increasing and then decreasing. This is not allowed, so we also need to mark this report as unsafe because the report was initially increasing, but then it started to decrease for that third element. Now we move to the fifth element. So we have 8, 6, 4, 4, and 1. So we take 6 minus 8, which is minus 2. Then we move on with 4 minus 6, which is minus 2 again. But As we move to the third and fourth element, that is 4 minus 4, we see that the difference is 0, and we cannot have that. We cannot have an element which is just not increasing at all, or the slope is 0. So this is not allowed, and we have to mark this report as unsafe as well. Since all the previous two differences were decreasing, but that third change was 0, so we have to mark the report as unsafe. So we take a look at the last last report, 13679. We take the first two elements difference, where is 3 minus 1, that becomes 2, then 6 minus 3, that is 3. So we are keeping on with the positive difference. We take 7 minus 6, that is 1, it is still positive. Now 9 minus 7, it is 2. So all the adjacent elements have a difference of positive 1, 2, or 3. This is allowed, and this makes the report safe. So we have two reports which are safe, and you can see in the example as shown, there are indeed two reports marked as safe. Now this was just a walkthrough of the problem. Now we need to think about how we can implement or approach this problem. So you can see that the report could be either increasing or decreasing. So that indication can be seen from the first two elements. So if we take the difference of the first two elements, we can sort of get the idea where that report is heading towards. Either it's increasing or it is decreasing. We take the difference of the first two elements, and with that difference, we can have some checks, because this could be, so if it is increasing or decreasing, we need to have a flag. So we can sort of get an idea where it is heading towards. So if the difference becomes greater than 0, it is increasing, else it is decreasing. But we also need to make sure that the difference is not 0 and not beyond the constraint that we have, that is 3 and minus 3, or we can say the absolute difference is between 1 and 3. So if that is true, then we can head towards looping through the rest of the elements in the report. So we iterate through the next all the elements, that is, we have computed the difference for the first two elements. Now we need to compute the differences and see the result for the rest of the levels in the report. So we have to iterate from 2 till the end of the report. So first we compute the difference of that first, the second element and the previous element. So the current element and the previous element. We compute that difference, and we need to check if that flag increased was true or not. So if the first two elements had a positive difference, know that the difference should be increasing for all the rest of the elements. So we need to check if the flag is decreasing and the current difference is negative or 0, or it is greater than 3, then we have to mark the report unsafe. Because, and I'll continue with this, if the flag was not increasing, that is, the flag was decreasing, then, and current difference is positive or 0 or less than negative 3. In this case, we also have to mark the report unsafe. As you can see in the first case, if the flag increasing was true, that means the first two elements had a positive difference, and we expect all the remaining elements to have that positive difference. But if we see a difference which is negative, or it is equal to 0, or it is going beyond the bound, that is, it is going beyond 3, we need to mark that report unsafe. And if the flag was decreasing, that is, the first two elements difference was negative, we need to make sure that the current difference is coming out to be positive, is not coming out to be positive, because that should be within the range -1 and -3. So if that goes beyond 0, or it, even if it is 0 or beyond 0 or beyond -3, we need to mark the report unsafe. And We keep doing it till we are done through for all the elements or levels in the report. And if we are done with the loop, we mark the report safe, because at this point all the elements had a correct difference, that is strictly increasing or decreasing elements. So let's start with the implementation. I'm writing this in Golang. This is for part one. I have a few helper functions like read file bytes and read file lines. So read file bytes is just returning slices of bytes from the uh, read from the file, and read file lines basically splits those bytes on a new line character and returns uh, a list of strings as lines. So in the main function, we need to have a few things. So we first need to read the lines from the sample file. So read file lines will return a list of strings as said. Now we need to implement a few things here. We need to split the levels. That is, each uh, report is a single list of integers. We need to create that, and within each report there will be a list of integers. So we need to create a list of integers with split levels, and we'll take in the lines as input. And we need to maintain a safe counter, that is how many reports in that all the reports are safe. So we iterate over the reports, and for each report we need to have some checks that I'll call the function as is safe. So report levels will be a list of strings, so and list of integers, and that single report will be a list of integers. So I need to iterate over that report and make sure that it is safe. So I'll call that function is safe, and if that returns true, I need to increment the counter, which is safe count 1 plus plus. So this will increment it by 1, and that is it from part 1 boilerplate. Like this will we need to just print the safe count. That will be the answer for part 1. We need to implement two functions, that is split levels, that will take in a list of integer strings, that is lines, and return a list of integers. And this list of integers will be multiple reports, where each report will be a list of integer numbers, you can say. And we need to range over all the lines, iterate over all the lines, and create that individual report and append it to the report levels. That will be the bigger list of integers. So we take the single string, that is line, report line, and split it with a space character, that is white space. So because that a single string will be having multiple numbers in them, so we need to split it on space, and we need to cast those individual numbers into integers. So we use strings.split, that will take in first parameter as report line, that is a string, and the second parameter as this operator, which is also a string. In this case it is empty, it is a white space character. So this will return a list of strings. So we iterate over those strings, that will be level string. So we'll have individual numbers in level str, and with that we will convert that level str into integers using strconv, that is string conversion package from standard library, which will use the aty function that will take in a string and return either an integer or an error if there is some issue with the conversion. But in this case it won't error because it is fine. If there is an error, we'll log it out or panic from the function. That won't happen, but just make it clean. And with that, we'll append that level into the reports level uh, into the slice, which will be for that particular report. So we are iterating from report line, so we appended that empty list, and that is reference from that I, which is the index for that current report. And once we have appended that, we just return report levels from this function. And once that is created, we need to also create the isSafe function, which is the actual logic for marking that report safe or unsafe. So we'll create a function isSafe that will take in report as a list of integers and return the boolean, which will be true or false. So we'll first compute the previous difference, that is the difference of the current previous difference of the first two elements, that is report 1 minus report of 0. Once we have that, we need to check if that difference is increasing or decreasing to get a sense of where the report is heading towards. So we'll say previous difference is greater than 0. This will return true or false depending on what the difference is. So if we also need to check that difference is within the ranges. So previous difference is not, if it's 0 and or it is greater than 3, that means it is invalid. So we'll return false, which means the report is unsafe because we have identified the first two elements difference is not following those two conditions. That is, it is 0 or it is greater than 3, which is not allowed. So we early exit the function and return false on the first iteration. Once we have created the first two elements difference and we have a sense of where the report is heading towards, or that is increasing or decreasing, we need to iterate through the rest of the report, that is starting from 2 till the end of report elements in the report. So we'll iterate from 2 till the end of the report and increment it by 1 every time. So once that is done, we need to compute the current difference, that will be from the current element to the previous element. And we have two conditions here, that is if the the first two elements difference was increasing, then if we encounter this current difference to be less than 0 or negative or even equal to 0, or it is beyond 3, the report is unsafe because it was initially increasing, but now the current difference becomes 0 or less than 0, or it is greater than 3. Those two conditions are 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 failed here, so we need to mark that report unsafe. So we return false from this. And that will be the second condition, that is if the report was decreasing initially. If that report was initially decreasing, then we need to check that if that current difference is not greater than or equal to 0, or the difference is not less than -3. This makes sure that the reports are following the strictly decreasing pattern. So if the current difference goes beyond 0 or is even equal to 0 and less than -3, it goes -4, -5 and so on. That is also marked as unsafe. And will return true at the end of the loop because we have not found any discrepancy in the levels of the report of that particular report. So we return true, and that is from the isSafe method for this part 1. And we have implemented both the functions split levels and isSafe. So this is what is for part 1. We basically return true or false depending on whether we have encountered any discrepancy in the levels of the report. So that is the flow of it. We iterate through all the reports and compute if it is safe or not and increment the counter if it is safe. And you can see if I run this script, it gives out true, which is the expected output for this part 1, which is 2 reports are safe. So yeah, that is it from part 1. We'll look into part 2 now. So we move into part 2 of day 2. So in part 2, what we have to do is we now can remove one element and check if that report can be made safe or not. So we'll take an example here as well. So the same examples. So we can remove one element from that report, and if that was not safe initially, we can check if that by removing that element, if we can make we can make that report safe. So that is so that those two conditions are still intact. That is, we need to have strictly increasing or strictly decreasing elements in the report, and those difference should be within 1 and 3. So if we take a look at example 1, 3, 2, 4, 5, we can see 3 minus 1 is 2 and 2 minus 3 is minus 1. So initially it was increasing and then it became decreasing. So what we can do here is, let's say we remove let's say 3 in this case, and we saw that 1, by removing 3 we get 1, 2, 4 and 5. So with that, what we can have is, so let's say we removed 2 from the report and we get 1, 3, 4 and 5. So that means 1 and 3 it is increasing 2, 3 and 4 it is increasing 1, and 4 and 5 it is increasing by 1, so it is safe. But if we remove 2, then it is also safe because 1, 3, 4 and 5 it is also safe. So if we take a look at one more example, 1, 2, 7, 8, 9, and we compute 2 minus 1, that is 1, and 7 minus 6, 7 minus 2, sorry, yeah, 7 minus 2, which is 5, which is not right, right? Like we need to have between 1 and 3. So if we remove 7 from the list, sorry, we remove 2 from the list and we get 1, 7, 8, and 9, that is still wrong because 1, 7 minus 1 is 6, and that is beyond the bounds. And we remove 7, we get 1, 2, 8, and 9, which is still unsafe because 8 and 2, the difference is 6. So that is still not allowed. If we remove 1 and, and check 2, 7, 8, and 9, that is still unsafe because 2 and 7, the difference is 5. So if we remove any of the elements, it is still unsafe. So if we keep removing 2, 7, 8 and add 1 there, so we get, still we are faced with 2 and 7, and if we remove any of the elements it is still unsafe. So this is still unsafe by removing at least one element from the report. So we just have to do that. And how we will approach this is, let's say we compute this 1, 3, 2, 4, 5 example, and we see that the difference was initially positive, but then we saw the second element, that is the third element or second, is causing that change in the uh, in the difference. So we mark that element, that is 3 or 2, as unsafe, and we kind of keep track of that index, and we kind of remove that element and check again if that makes the report safe. So if we remove 3 from the element from the report, we get 1, 2, 4 and 5. So we remove the index 1, that is 3, we get 1, 2, 4 and 5. We again check if that report is safe or not. So we do 2 minus 1, which is 1, and this becomes safe. So now if we check for 86441, and we see 8, 6 minus 8, which is 2, then 6, 4 minus 6, that is minus 2 again, then 4 minus 4, it is 2. So that is the discrepancy there, that is it was decreasing initially but then it got increasing by 2, or yeah, that was difference of 0. So 8641, if we keep this is safe now. So we need to keep track of that index, that we identify the change in the directions, or even if it becomes 0. Create a flow here. So we first check that report is safe without removing any elements, and if it is not safe, we need to get the index of where the discrepancy was found. That is where that actual change happened. And what we can do with that index is check by removing that element at that index. We remove that element from the report and check if it is safe. If it is not safe, we check the element. So we check the report by removing that element at that index minus 1. So we take the element just before that index and remove that and check if that report is safe or not. If it is not safe, we check the element before that index, after that index. So we check that report by removing that element after that index. So if that becomes safe, then it is safe. But if that doesn't become safe, then we have to mark the report safe because we have tried combinations of making that element removed from the report, but there are maybe two or more uh, elements that are causing the report to be unsafe. So that is the flow of part 2. So let us look at the part 2 implementation. So we have created this flow for part 1, which was iterating over all the reports and marking it safe using that is safe function. And so now we need to make a few changes here. So what we need to do here is the same thing, that is create a safe counter that will be initialized to 0 and then iterate over all the levels. And this time we'll create a function called remove levels for that report. And if that is returns true, we'll increment the counter and print that. So to get the total safe reports in that entire list of reports. And we need to kind of change this is safe method because we just returned boolean. Now we need to return the index as well where that discrepancy is found, if any. So it takes report which is a list of integers and it returns a bool and a integer. So the logic remains the same, that is we first compute the first two elements difference, and if it is increasing we store it in the is increasing flag, and we do basic checks, that is if that uh, difference is positive, or if that difference is equal to 0, or it is like beyond 3, we have to return false because that is a wrong condition and it has violated the condition, and we return 0 because we have found that discrepancy in the first element itself. We'll take a look at how we can do the next element as well, because the discrepancy could be in 0 or 1 element. Now we need to iterate over the remaining elements in the report, that is from 2 till the end of report, so till the length of the report, and increment it by 1 each time. So we compute the difference from the current and the previous element, and we check if that report initially was having a positive difference, and if currently now it has negative difference or difference is greater than 3, we need to mark it unsafe just as usual. And now we need to return that index, that is I minus 1, that is the previous index, because we will see how we want to do this, because we want to do one element after and one element before that. So this will come in handy when we are actually doing implementing the remove level function. So if it's increasing or if it was decreasing, then the current difference is not positive, or it is not beyond -3, that is -4 or -5, so on. So if that is the case, then we return false, and the same I minus 1 index, that is there, that is where we found the discrepancy first, and we return through and -1 because the report is safe. We don't need to remove any elements, so it is -1. So there was no discrepancy, so we return my -1 in this default case. So that is the is safe method changed, and we have to implement remove levels that will take in report, that is a list of integers, and return a boolean if it could be made safe by removing that element or levels. So we first check that is that report safe or not. If it is safe, we return true, and we now return the unsafe index that will be returned from the safe method that we've changed now. So if the reports comes out to be safe, we return true because there's nothing to be done here. It is safe. But otherwise, we need to have a few things here. So we have implemented this if remove and check method that will take in the report, and we provide the index, and it will give us if it could be made safe by removing that element at that index. So what we will do is, since we have got the index from isSafe method above, unsafe index, and we'll pass that unsafe index to this remove and check method, and if that returns true, we return true because this is safe now. By removing that element at unsafe index, we made that report safe. But if that is not true, and we need to check the unsafe, we need to make the report safe, we need to check the index, check the number before that index, that is the number before that, and check that if that could be made safe by removing that number, that is the level. And if that could be made safe by removing that number, we return true again. But if that's not the case, we now need to check that with one number after that. So index plus 1, so that will give the number after that level that was found a discrepancy with. So we check one element before and one element after where the discrepancy was found, because it could be in either of the directions. So we return true, and if nothing return true, we return false, because there is no way we can make that report safe after removing three combinations of unsafe where we found discrepancy. So we need to implement remove and check method that will take in a report, which will be a list of integers or slice of integers, and it will also take in the index as an integer, and it will return if it can be made safe or not as a boolean. So if the index, we need to first check that index is within the range of that report, so it's not overflowing the length of the report, or it is not negative. If it is that, if it is negative or greater than the length of the report, we return false. Otherwise, we need to do things. So we need to remove that element at that index. So we take the report and we append everything before that index into empty list and save it to report new variable. So what are we doing here is we basically creating an empty list and appending everything before that index from that report list and saving it in report new variable. And then we take everything in report new and append it. We take everything after that index and append it to the report new variable. This time what are we doing is basically removing that index from that report, but we are not mutating that report, we are just creating a new report. And so let's say we have a list called 1 2 3 4 5 and the index is 3. In this case we need to remove the element 4 because it is at index 4, it is at index 3. So in this case what we will do is we will take 1 2 3 and append it to empty list, and then in the next step, so everything after before 3 third index, that is 1 2 and 3, and then everything after 3, that is 5, will append 1 2 3 with 5. So 5 is appended to 1 to 3 in that syntax level thing. So that is that, and we return if that new report can is safe by removing that element. So we just return safe if it is true or false. So that is remove remove levels function. That is the implementation of part 2. So we just iterate over the list and we do remove levels function that will take in a report and return a boolean. So we check with the report itself if it is safe. If it is safe, we return true. Else we check that unsafe index. We check by removing that level at that unsafe index and level one level back and one level after. And you can see that it is indeed returning 4, which is the expected output for part 2 in the sample given. So that is it from day 2. Let me know if you have better solutions for this. Thank you.